All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Glad to have all of you again. And it's me, your favorite Jackson, the good Jackson, whom you saw last week and may see again next week. It's entirely possible. Joining me is my host and co host, Peter, from Gonna Go For It. Oh, he's invisible.
And there we go. See, it's
How'd you do
magic.
that?
It's magic.
How did you do that?
It is. It's just magic.
I that is magic. I couldn't believe it myself.
No.
Uh, and then also joining us, I realized I didn't retweet your thing from earlier. My bad. And also joining us is one of my editors, Nestlig, who just finished editing one of my scripts.
Hello.
Welcome.
I think I heard Peter say during the transition when we got live, he said about auto translation turning it off would be best.
No. Echo cancellation. Oh, and also joining us is some English guy. Now what?
Well, I have to increase the anglophone attendance in the show.
You have to watch your language now because he's English. He will correct you. It's color with a U.
And maths with an S.
Yep. Aluminium.
True. Yep. So what we've been doing for a while, I don't know, a few weeks, something like that, as we've been going through PragerU videos on climate change. And climate change either isn't real or it is real, but it's not that bad. And burning
Or
fossil
maybe
fuels
good.
is good anyway. Right? It's good. Who's who can say? It's hard to tell. They don't talk to each other. It's like I don't know what the process is for their videos. Is there like a set of editors? Is there one? Do the people write their own videos and then like they just kind of go through a couple people to make sure they look good? Like how does it work? Does anyone talk to each other? Is there because there's no cohesive narrative on like whether climate change is good or bad or even real. So um and it's of course no surprise that PragerU went creationist. I predicted years ago that they would, long before they had Stephen Meyer on, because if an organization is conservative and opposed to climate change as a concept, I mean, like, then you can also usually pretty strongly associate creationism in one form or another with that group. And surely enough, they've had Stephen Meyer on a number of times now to argue that evolution's false. Intelligent design is cool and whatnot. So, unfortunately, I got to work with Professor Dave on that, and we dunked on that as well as Gunter Beckley and a few other people. So that was fun. But I mean, they've had a lot of weirdos on there because the project of PragerU is just kind of broadly conservative, and they let a lot of people, into that tent. They have people who are like weird, people who argue that like, oh well, the Confederate, states of America weren't that bad. People who were obviously like oil moguls arguing that climate change isn't that bad if it's real at all. You have intelligent design advocates. So it's just a hodgepodge of all these different kind of groups. There was, for a little bit, a YouTube channel that was kind of an anti-PragerU. Do you guys remember what it was called?
Just one?
Yeah, there was a channel that had did little animations kind of like PragerU does, but it was from a left-wing perspective.
Oh, I've forgotten the name, but I think they also made a pro-Russia video, right?
They
Or
did one.
same,
Yeah, they did
yeah,
one. I think it was on the Ukraine conflict, and that kind
yeah,
of sunk their
exactly.
channel
Hmm.
because they were like, actually,
Deservedly, yeah.
it was Ukraine's fault for that. Aside from that one video, they actually most of the videos I watched of theirs were pretty good. I thought they were quite interesting and well researched. And then yeah, they did that one, and then after it was just kind of over after that.
Yeah,
Which is
I don't understand they are often called tankies,
yes,
right?
mhm.
Right, and I don't understand why they need to feel to the need to die on the hill of of the Kremlin.
Right, yeah, you would think like I mean we can all agree that the USSR was bad, Russia's still doing a lot of bad stuff today. Why do we have to argue about that? I guess the thinking is, well, if it's anti-America, it must be good because America bad. And like, well, America can be bad, but that doesn't mean everything that's anti-America is therefore
Yeah,
good,
but
you know.
also doesn't mean that everything America is bad.
Yeah, I mean,
People,
America can do good stuff sometimes.
Yeah,
yeah,
I still would rather live in the United States than in Russia. Yes, even at this point, but it's getting the margin is getting smaller.
yeah.
Uh,
What were they called? What was that group called? Can anyone remember what that channel was called? Um, because I can't remember. Oh, the Gravel Institute. That's what it was. Gravel Institute. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah. I now remember. Like I used to remind myself by saying, oh, it sounds like the Gravel Institute, but it's the is it
Oh,
the
that's right. They had Mom Donnie do an episode, wasn't it? Yeah, they had Zoran Mamdani do an episode on solving the housing crisis. That's
Mm-hmm.
right. I forgot about that, which was interesting. But yeah, anyway, the Gravel. I kept thinking like the Graves Institute. Yeah, their
It would
last
be
video
more.
was
It would be more
4 years ago.
appropriate if you said Gravel Institute, because after the Russian video, it turned to dust. It's my dad joke for today.
They did some
But
interesting videos. I
that is a
remember.
good sign. When like that is also a good sign when like there used to be a popular channel, but when they posted that video, it tanked like almost immediately. So it's yeah.
Which is funny to me because like I mean the like PragerU does not care if their videos are wrong. Right? Like they're
Right.
not going to issue a retraction or an apology if they put out a video that's, you know, 10 different shades of wrong. They're just going to keep on pumping,
Yeah,
which
and
is what they
also
do.
they and also they yeah it's also the fact that they are just funded by the Coke Brothers, right? So they don't care if
Right.
they views tank, but for some but the reason why their views don't tank is because they have like they do a lot of advertisement, right? So, sometimes even on I think it's also on your channel. Sometimes
Mhm.
there's like
Yep.
an ad from PragerU on your channel as well. So yeah, it's
Yeah, it's like
money, money.
they'll
Yeah,
do
that's it.
whole video ads. Like they'll put that entire video as an ad on, somebody's channel. Um
And
I
Jackson,
mean like I've seen people. Hmm?
PragerU, that their content is pretty biblical, and truth doesn't change, right? So why would
It's
they post a
true.
retraction? I mean,
True. Yeah, why would you ever need to retract? I
have you
mean,
ever
they're
seen
always
God
right.
do
Even
that? I
yeah.
mean,
It's a
Even despite the or in addition to the blatant how do you call it, the blatant bias regarding their funding.
mhm.
uh Dennis Blake is also pretty bad shit in his views. Like I specifically remember one time he just straight up defended marital rape, just straight up. Yeah,
of course he
it's
did.
insane.
Well, I mean, that is a fairly pervasive belief. I've heard that one multiple times. The like, oh well, if they're married,
Oh,
then
you're
it
frozen
can't be.
again. Sorry.
Oh, whoop, row, ruh-roh. But yeah, the argument they're like, oh well, if they're married, then it can't be. You know, it must be consensual or whatever. It's like that's not how that works. It's pretty disgusting.
It's like once you're married, you're the property of your spouse. Like,
Right.
Mm.
Maya Atkinson, hello. We got Katina Packbays, Tabula Rasa, Icarus. Hello, everyone. How's it going, guys? How we doing? How we feeling? There have been some really good videos by Sean, in which he dunks on PragerU. Like they tried to lie about Trump saying that there were very fine people on both sides of the Charlottesville riot. One of the sides was white nationalists, which at this point is really funny to me because Trump has done so much more than just, allude to white nationalists being fine people. I mean, he literally said, Proud Boys stand back and stand by during his debate with Joe Biden. Like,
But when students protest against a government who calls themselves the Jewish state, then it's all anti-Semitism, and they all need to be deported. Yeah, it's
right. Yeah, pretty crazy stuff. So, all right, we ready to keep on rolling with these videos?
I'm ready. So
all right, let's do it.
Want to try it? Let's do this.
Yep. I can't hear it.
I can't hear it either.
Oh no!
What's going on?
Well, it may be better this way, actually. On second thought.
Yeah, but it's not as entertaining for the people watching if we can't hear anything.
Yeah.
So let me check my filters. That should.
And Smitty. Yep, video is muted.
I can already see the argument he's using, like, CO2 is not like in terms of CO2 fixation, plants benefit from higher CO2 content in the atmosphere, because this is also something I will be discussing with regard to the evolution of photosynthesis when I get around to it, hopefully. Like the enzyme responsible is called Rubisco. You may also be familiar with the enzyme Rubisco.
Mm-hmm.
It's a notoriously inefficient enzyme. It's not saturated at current atmospheric levels, which is an indication that Rubisco evolved during a time when CO2 was much higher, and it's probably evolved around the Archean eon when CO2 was many times higher than today. But of course,
the sound should work.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see.
Is 4 to 5 times what is currently found in our...
I still don't hear it.
Nope.
It doesn't work? It works.
We can't hear it in here. I don't know if they can hear it out there.
Yeah, they can hear it. They can hear it out there, but it's not good.
Smitty says the Earth's plants were on the ropes before the Industrial Revolution came in at the last minute to save them. It's true, actually. That's true. That is in fact what happened.
How about now?
Atmosphere. That's why greenhouse growers...
Okay. Let me see if I can...
Okay, we can already pause. Yeah, greenhouse growers do increase the CO2 content slightly, but they also control for the temperature and humidity and everything else. So, god damn it. I truly hate Patrick Moore.
I went back a few seconds.
During the Cambrian explosion, when multicellular life first came on the scene, CO2 levels were as much as 10 times higher than they are today.
And there was like no life on land.
From a big picture perspective, we're actually living in a low carbon dioxide era. The optimum level of CO2 for plant growth, for example, is 4 to 5 times what is currently found in our atmosphere.
There we go.
That's why greenhouse growers worldwide actually inject additional CO2 into their greenhouses. They want to promote plant growth. Likewise, higher CO2 levels in the global atmosphere will boost food and forest productivity. That will come in handy since...
Yeah, that would come in handy if at the same time we weren't also deforesting those forests. Like the largest forests on the planet, we are cutting down. So you can't have it both ways. You can't be like on the one hand, oh, all this carbon dioxide, which as Smitty points out is not carbon, by the way, as he said last time. So this extra not carbon dioxide is helping plants grow, but also we're cutting down the forests. So it's like,
Yeah.
know,
And as I
double
as I
whammy.
mentioned in the regarding the greenhouses, like we also control for everything else besides the CO2 content. Like we can control for humidity, watering, right, and also temperature. So, but with regard to the entire Earth, we cannot control for those things and CO2. Like if CO2 rises and the whole world starts to get warmer, then that can also have negative side effects, despite the fact that CO2 may have a beneficial effect on plant growth. There also it may get drier in some places or wetter in
Yep.
other places, and the temperature can get warmer in most places, and that can have a net negative effect on the plant, or at least on the ecosystem side. Like I think it's also I think it's also a good example to bring up, like when I think that's also a good example. In the pine forest, right? So normally when it gets very cold in the winter, there's like a beetle species that freezes to death, right? Under the usual condition, but due to climate change, specifically increasing temperature, those beetles tend to survive more, and then you have like these plagues of beetles. So the beetles are getting some benefit from the increasing temperature, but the entire ecosystem is now out of whack because of that. So it's not a good like he's cherry picking beneficial aspects and then ignoring everything else. That's what he does.
That's crazy. What are you talking about, Nestle? They would never do that. They would never cherry pick specific singular data points out of context. That's not a thing PragerU does.
And I'm also pretty sure that if you specifically look at plant growth, that it might be the case that some plant species will do much better under a
Sure.
warmer Earth.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean it's beneficial overall, because it can even lead to like more invasive species or even an imbalance in the ecosystem as well. Yeah.
Yes, like certain coralline algae replace coral reefs because these algae can grow when the water's warmer, but there's too much thermal stress for the corals, and so the corals die off and they get replaced with this coralline algae. But the coralline algae is not supporting the same degree of biodiversity that the corals are. And so you could say, like, oh, well, this algae is going to do a lot better in a warming climate. Well, yeah, the algae will, but the coral and all the species of fish that inhabit this reef won't.
Yeah.
So
it's just the fact that, like, in today's system, like, or today's parameters, like, oh, this average temperature, this average humidity, like the entire Earth has like equilibrated to those parameters. But when you change those parameters at a very rapid rate, you will introduce some problems, to put it mildly.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so we can continue.
Yeah.
By mid-century, we will have to feed 8 to 10 billion people. In fact, we're already seeing the positive effects of increased carbon dioxide now. Satellite measurements have noted the greening of the Earth as crops and forests grow due to our higher levels of CO2. It turns out that carbon dioxide are not dirty words after all.
Wait a minute. Hold on. So the forests are growing purely because our crops are growing more because of carbon dioxide, not because we are planting more crops? I'd be curious to know like what the data for that is.
Like, again, this can be true in the technical sense. Like, yeah, if it doesn't get, like, for example, in the permafrost or in the tundra region, where it doesn't get as cold as it used to be, yeah, you will expect more plant growth there, but it may not be a good thing to that ecosystem, because the ecosystem over there has adapted to low plant growth conditions. So when it's suddenly more plants appear, that may not be a good thing
So
to those
here's
regions specifically.
this is from the
Yeah.
Swedish Forest Industries. Oh my goodness, get out the way. That says, oh, I just saw it. It says forests. Hold on, let's see, forests. Oh, interesting. That is different from what it says in the article. There we go. Forests have been expanding in Europe, Russia, North America, the Caribbean, and East and West Central Asia, while they are shrinking in Central America, South America, South and Southeast Asia, as well as in Africa. It is important to realize that despite an increase in forest area, for example in Europe, as a result of active afforestation and abandonment of agricultural areas, there is also deforestation due to expansion of urban areas. Peter Holmgren, forestry specialist, further elaborates, over the last few decades, we've had a lot of deforestation around the world, a shift from forestry to agriculture. But there's also been an opposing trend, which has seen overgrown farmland as people have left rural areas and moved to cities. In China, for example, large-scale programs for active afforestation, or afforestation, I guess, are being implemented. We hear about deforestation mostly from the tropics, but overall the area is essentially balanced and its changes are quite small in relation to the total area. So that's what that one says.
Yeah. Also, another negative side effect of more plant growth is forest fires. Like again, in a normal circumstance, when you have like a very cold winter, plant growth is reduced. You have less plant matter to burn during the summer. But if you have like very warm winters, plants continue to grow, and then they dry out in the summer, and then you have a lot more tinder to burn, and that makes wildfires more severe as well. And then that's exactly one reason why we see more severe forest fires.
Okay, I was just looking over a study over the last decade on the southeastern Amazon revealed that it has been a net carbon source due to human intervention through deforestation and wildfire, and the negative impact of climate change and drought on primary forests. What is this? What study is this? Synthesis of the land carbon fluxes of the Amazon region between 2010 and 2020. The Amazon is the largest continuous tropical forest in the world and plays a key role in the global carbon cycle. Human-induced disturbances and climate change have impacted the Amazon carbon balance. Here we conduct a comprehensive synthesis of existing state-of-the-art estimates of the contemporary land carbon fluxes in the Amazon using a set of bottom-up methods and a top-down inversion over the Brazilian Amazon and the whole biogeographical Amazon domain. Over the whole biogeographical Amazon region, bottom-up methodologies suggests a small average carbon sink over 2010-2020, in contrast to a small carbon source simulated by top-down inversion 2010 to 2018. However, these estimates are not significantly different from each other when accounting for their large individual uncertainties, highlighting remaining knowledge gaps and the urgent need to reduce such uncertainties. Nevertheless, both methodologies agreed that the Brazilian Amazon has been a net carbon source during recent climate extremes, and that the southeastern Amazon was a net land carbon source over the whole study period. Overall, our results point to increasing human-induced disturbances such as deforestation and forest degradation by wildfires, and reduction in the old-growth forest sink during drought. Huh. Okay. Interesting. Okay. All right. So basically, the Amazon is becoming less of a carbon sink over time, is what it's saying.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It really like this all this other planet is becoming more green. Yeah, it mostly applies to like the higher latitudes.
Yeah.
The lower latitudes, then those things can be very different. Yeah. Although and then we can move on.
Okay.
We should celebrate CO2 as the giver of life that it is. I'm Patrick Moore, co-founder of Greenpeace for Prager University.
Also, I find it funny. I made a joke in the beginning, like, "Oh, maybe climate change is good," and then you laughed, and now, now here we are.
Here we are. Yep. Somebody made a joke on Twitter the other day of it's a prediction at this point. They said it'll be really funny when Trump refers to Charlie Kirk as like, I got shot at too, and they didn't hit me, kind of like dunking on him. And I thought at the time, I was like, that's kind of funny, but I don't think he'll do that. He did it like yesterday. It only took a couple weeks. And then Trump says, like, you would think I'm an easy target. I'm like bright orange and big. Yeah, he was like, he said something like, some people are better like at avoiding shots or something like that. Trump, Kirk.
Well, he did say about soldiers that the ones that got shot were the losers. So
here it is. He said Trump at the Charlie Kirk Memorial event. They fired sniper rifles at ICE agents and me, but I made a turn at a good time. Charlie couldn't believe it, actually. That's whack. Yeah, that's really funny.
Okay.
Because the person said on this person tweeted on September 10th, unfortunately, none of your tweets will be as funny as when Trump inevitably insinuates he's more manly for surviving a gunshot.
Mm-hmm.
Very funny. Very funny. Okay, anyway. All right, let's keep going.
Carbon emissions are rising, and faster than most scientists predicted. But many climate change alarmists seem to claim that all climate change is worse than expected. This ignores that much of the data is actually more encouraging than expected.
Copenhagen Consensus Center. What is that? Okay, the Copenhagen Consensus Center is a U.S. nonprofit think tank based in Lowell, Massachusetts, founded and headed by Bjorn Lomborg, this guy right here. The center organizes the Copenhagen Consensus, a conference of economists held every 4 years where potential solutions to global issues are examined and prioritized using cost-benefit analysis. They did it. The most recent consensus, titled Post-2015 Consensus, was held in 2015. It focused on the cost and benefits of the 169 global development targets of the United Nations global costs. Brought together a bunch of blah, 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 views on climate change. The center does not dispute the scientific consensus on climate change, but does not support sharp reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. A 2014 paper assessing climate change was criticized by several experts in the field, claiming that it underestimates the harm and misrepresents the papers cited. He writes a thing, publishes for the Skeptical Environmentalist. Okay, sorry, I was just curious. They do not, according to the Wikipedia, they do not dispute the scientific consensus on climate change. So let's keep that in mind.
Yes, Arctic sea ice is melting faster than models expected, but models also predicted that Antarctic sea ice would decrease, yet Antarctic sea ice is increasing. Yes, sea levels are rising, but the rise is not accelerating. If anything, two recent papers, one by Chinese scientists published...
Sorry for that. But I think I remember what did you talk about the Antarctic sea ice increasing. It's probably because like the sea ice on the North Pole, that sea ice is mainly just frozen sea water. But the ice on Antarctica, that's frozen fresh water. So when that water melts, the fresh water will go into the ocean. What happens? The salinity will decrease of the ocean. And what happens to the freezing temperature of the ocean when salinity decreases? It will increase the freezing point of the ocean, and that's why you have the side effect of having more sea ice, even though the total land mass of the ice on land is decreasing at the same time. So, yeah.
I went to the Antarctic Sea Ice Wikipedia page, recent trends and climate change. It says, quote, sea ice extent in Antarctica varies a lot year by year. This makes it difficult to determine a trend, and record highs and record lows have been observed between 2013 and 2023. The general trend since November 1978, the start of satellite measurements, has been roughly flat, with two distinct change points. From November 1978 to August 2007, the main sea ice extent anomaly was close to zero. This was followed by a period of positive anomalies from September 2007 to August 2016, and a subsequent shift to predominantly negative anomalies that continues to the present. Statistical analyses show that the Antarctic sea ice system has undergone a structural change that is indicative of a regime shift in the system's behavior. The decline in Antarctic sea ice since 2016 has been accompanied by increased upper ocean heat content, suggesting an oceanic influence on the observed loss. This reduction in sea ice appears to be primarily driven by thermodynamic processes rather than by mechanical advection. The IPCC AR5 report concluded that it is very likely that annual mean Antarctic sea ice extent increased 1.2 to 1.8% per decade during the period 1979 to 2012. It also concluded that the lack of data precludes determining the trend in total volume or mass of the sea ice. The increase in sea ice area probably has a number of causes. These are tied to changes in the southern hemispheric westerly winds, which are a combination of natural variability and forced change from greenhouse gases in the ozone hole. The winds drive sea ice drift, and modeling research suggests that the observed sea ice expansion was driven by changes in the sea ice drift velocity. Another possible driver is ice shelves melting, which increases freshwater input into the ocean. This increases the weakly stratified ocean surface layer, and so reduces the ability of warm subsurface water to reach the surface. A 2015 study found this effect in climate models run to simulate future climate change, resulting in an increase of sea ice in the winter months. Recent changes in wind patterns, which are connected to regional changes in the number of extratropical cyclones and anticyclones around Antarctica, have advected the sea ice farther north in some areas and not as far north in others.
Yeah, the North Pole and the South Pole are almost like opposite in each other. Like the North Pole is sea surrounded by land, and the South Pole is land surrounded by sea. So there's a very different dynamic going on between those two.
Right. So, in other words, according to the Wikipedia, there is not currently an increase in sea ice. It has been decreasing. Right? So while it is mostly flat, there has been a decrease since 2016, is what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Continue.
In January 2014, and the other by U.S. scientists published in May 2013, have shown a small decline in the rate of sea level increase. We're often being told that we're seeing more and more droughts, but a study published in March 2014 in the journal Nature actually shows a decrease in the world's surface that has been afflicted by droughts.
Pause, I have a paper for this one. I actually did the research on that one. Give me a sec. There is increased drought. Give me just one sec to find that paper. because I did some research on that and actually presented it in one of my classes. Let's see.
Oh no! I can already see a problem. It only shows the percentage of the global surface experiencing drought. It doesn't say how severe the drought is.
Oh.
It does. Oh wait, sorry. I think it does, but
percentage of the
yeah.
globe in drought. So
Yeah.
percentage of the globe in drought. Okay, so here, I'm sorry, give me just one sec. Increasing droughts. 156. Okay. Okay, so so he cited a 2014 paper. The 2024 Science Advances paper, Anthropogenic Warming has ushered in an era of temperature-dominated droughts in the Western United States by Yizu Zhuang et al. They write in the abstract, historically, meteorological drought in the Western United States has been driven primarily by precipitation deficits. However, our observational data shows that since around 2000, rising surface temperatures and the resulting high evaporative demand have contributed more to drought severity, 62%, and coverage, 66%, over the Western United States than a precipitation deficit. This increase in evaporative demand during droughts, mostly attributable to anthropogenic warming, according to analyses of both observations and climate model simulations, is the main cause of the increased drought severity and coverage. The unprecedented 2020 to 2022 Western U.S. drought exemplifies this shift in drought drivers, with high evaporative demand accounting for 61% of its severity compared to 39% from precipitation deficit. Climate model simulations corroborate this shift and project that under the fossil fuel development scenario, droughts like the 2020 to 2022 event will transition from a 1 in more than 1,000-year event in the pre-2022 period to a 1 in 60-year event by the mid-21st century to a 1 in 6-year event by the late 21st century. So I'm not sure what paper. So they're relying on Global Integrated Drought Monitoring and Prediction System. So abnormally dry severe extreme. I'm not entirely sure about this paper, but that paper is older. So I cited one from 2024. Actually, let's look at this paper. Let's see. Global Integrated Drought Monitoring. Global Integrated Drought Monitoring. Because I want to know if this is a Trojan source. And prediction system. It was cited in Nature. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Background and summary. Each year, droughts result in significant socioeconomic losses and ecological damage across the globe. Recent years, several research and operation drought monitoring models have been developed. However, drought warning and prediction systems are still the least developed systems. Yeah, okay. Calls for a drought monitoring system, drought prediction system. I'm sorry, I'm like skimming this paper trying to see drought severity information. Drought monitoring based on multiple indicators. Technical validation. Sample drought monitoring outputs based on these indicators. Display global drought information. We're pointing out the probability of drought occurrences. Results indicate that the... trying to see if they talk about... Okay. Here, okay, so that chart that he's using is figure 5. Okay, so that chart right here is figure 5 in this paper. Okay, drought data records are fundamental to study regional global changes to trends and patterns of droughts. The data set list in table 3 can be used for a wide variety of applications. For example, the climate data records can be used to assess the fraction of global land areas under D0 to D4 drought severity levels as displayed in figure 5. The figure highlights a substantial increase in severe to exceptional drought in the late 90s, as discussed in previous studies. The figure indicates that in peak time, around 20% of global land areas were in severe to exceptional drought, a record drought, the likes of which has not been experienced since. Okay. A region's drought climatology can also be investigated using this data. One can obtain the fraction of the region country under drought and assess trends of temporal patterns in areas of drought. Recent study, global trends and spatial patterns of drought are investigated. Users can evaluate. The figure shows that both regions can experience multi-year dry and wet periods. The information can be used to place specific drought in perspective. Fraction of the globe in drought. Okay. I would be curious to know if the areas that are experiencing drought, maybe the issue is less of the world is in drought, but the areas that typically experience drought are experiencing it more seriously. Because that's what this paper indicates for the Western United States. Like the drought in areas that experience drought is worse. Because one thing you do have to remember is, it might sound kind of contradictory, but in addition to droughts occurring because through evaporation, so the water cycle speeds up also, right? So the water cycle speeds up because you have more evaporation and you have more condensation, right? And therefore more precipitation. And so I wonder if areas that like experience the water cycle, or they're like more of the land experiences the water cycle, which is also going faster, because there have been papers. There's also a 2024 paper, global record-breaking recurrence rates indicate widespread and intense surface air temperature and precipitation extremes, that discusses how the fraction, that's what this is. That's what it is. Okay. That's right. Okay. I get what it's saying now. The fraction of Earth's surface with extremely hot days is increased, and also the fraction of Earth's surface receiving daily heavy rainfall has increased. So you are getting a speed up of the water cycle. So just trying to say, well, you're just
It's very local dependent. Like in one location, it may be the same amount of rainfall, or maybe the same amount of humidity, but some places are getting much drier and some places are getting much wetter. It really depends on the
so they're
location.
just focusing on the drought. They're saying, well, not everywhere, because I guess the argument they're trying to make is, you would expect if the Earth is just getting warmer that droughts would just occur across the planet more, like with greater frequency.
Which also may not be true, because if in a hothouse Earth, like for example, maybe a better example, but during the PETM maybe, or
the Paleocene Eocene thermal
yeah.
maximum. Yeah.
I if I'm mistaken, that wasn't on a global desert. It was
Right.
Actually pretty, like there were rainforests in the polar region during the time. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that paper also points out that the percentage of storms, of severe storms, has also increased. So yeah, as Nestle pointed out, you have drought in some areas, but you also have greater precipitation in others. So it's like it's both, right? You have both of these issues. So it's not just simply a matter of, well, we can calculate how much of the planet is currently experiencing drought and it has decreased over time. The question I would have is, in the areas that typically experience droughts, is it worse? And for like the Western United States, the answer is yes. but other places experience greater frequency of storms. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of disingenuity going on here. Of
And also,
selection, cherry picking.
yeah. And also, paradoxically, it's also something that you mentioned at the beginning, that even if you have a situation where you go from like a desert to something that's more green, that may not be a good thing for the local species, because like, again, some species are desert adapted, and if the desert becomes more humid over time, that may not be a good thing for them as well. So yeah, it's really, you really have to look at it from a local perspective, where they have different needs than other places.
Yeah. Okay, we can keep going.
Since 1982. Facts like these are important because a one-sided focus on worst-case stories is a poor foundation for sound policies. Hurricanes are likewise used as an example of things getting worse. But look at the US, where we have the best statistics. If we adjust for population and wealth, hurricane damage during the period of 1900 to 2013 actually decreased slightly. At the UN Climate Conference in Lima, Peru, in December 2000.
Who on earth looks at hurricanes in terms of the damage caused? Like what? What kind of metric for measuring hurricanes is that?
Because all it matters is property value, Jackson. That's all it matters. Nothing else.
The number of severe storms per year has gone up. Also, I call bullcrap on this. Hold on one second. Hold on.
I have heard that the frequency of hurricanes have decreased, but the severity of hurricanes have increased. Like there are fewer hurricanes in total, but there are a lot more F4 and F5 hurricanes, for example. That's the tornado scale. Like what's the scale for hurricanes again? I mistakenly used the scale for tornadoes on hurricanes. Like
I'm
I
putting
forgot the scale
in our live chat. This is $1 billion weather and United States $1 billion disaster events 1980 to 2024. If you look at this, you can see the number of severe storms, not necessarily hurricanes, but severe storms, has increased year over year. The number of tropical cyclone count does not necessarily increase, but the number of severe storms has increased, and the cost wrought by these storms has also increased year over year. You see that, Nestling?
Yes.
Yeah, damage cost goes down because more housing is built to withstand hurricanes. Right, yeah. If you know that the storm's going to come back, why would you build the house in such a way that it just gets, wrecked again, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Just dishonest hackery. So, yeah, the 5-year average cost has gone up. The cost has gone up. Combined disaster costs. Yeah, these have all gone up.
And the severity of the storms also makes sense because, like, the energy that powers a storm, especially from a hurricane, that energy comes from the latent heat from water vapor condensing back into liquid water. And so if the atmosphere is warmer, it can hold more water vapor. So that's why it's more severe. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just hurricanes, and we just we just need to measure hurricanes in terms of the damage caused, not the actual number of hurricanes. Like, are you kidding me?
Also not the actual, not even the number of human lives affected, just property value. That's
literally
all to them.
That's like the dumbest scale I've ever heard. Yeah, no, guys, hurricanes aren't like tornadoes aren't as bad because fewer people are or fewer houses are getting destroyed by tornadoes. Yeah, okay. All right, that's stupid. God. What an idiotic scale. Okay, we can keep going.
2014, attendees were told that their countries should cut carbon emissions to avoid future damage from storms like Typhoon Hagupit, which hit the Philippines during the conference, killing at least 21 people and forcing more than 1 million into shelters. Yet the trend for strong typhoons around the Philippines have actually declined since 1950, according to a study published in 2012 by the Journal of Climate.
Hey, pause.
Again, we're told that...
Oh, Peter, can you go back a little bit? That's a funny face, but
Yeah.
I think that's a great pause.
that is a great pause. If you could go back just a little bit, I want to see what that study says.
We're ruining the pause. How far back would you say?
Now he looks
just
like
like-
Gordon Ramsay's brother.
Right, just like 15 seconds, something like that. Also, my unfinished claw says, "Hail Jax Peter and hail nature." Okay, yeah, you can play.
And hail Nestle.
And hail Nestle.
Yeah.
these. Hurricanes are likewise used as an example of things getting worse. But look at the US, where we have the best statistics. If we adjust for population and wealth, hurricane damage during the period of 1900 to 2013 actually decreased slightly. At the UN Climate Conference in Lima, Peru, in December 2014, attendees were told that their countries should cut carbon emissions to avoid future damage from storms like Typhoon Hagupit, which hit the Philippines during the conference, killing at least 21 people and forcing more than 1 million into shelters. Yet the trend for strong typhoons around the Philippines have actually declined since 1950, according to a study published in 2012 by the Journal of Climate. Again,
Close. Historical tropical cyclone landfalls. Historical tropical cyclone landfalls.
But I think you already mentioned that the frequency of typhoons have stayed more or less the same, but the severity of each of them has increased on average.
Yeah. By who are these people in this paper? Winkle. Okay, so that's this paper. Historical global tropical cyclone landfalls by Winkle et al. Okay. In recent decades, this is literally the first sentence of the abstract. Economic damage from tropical cyclones around the world has increased dramatically. Scientific literature published to date finds that the increase in losses can be explained entirely by societal changes in locations prone to tropical cyclone landfalls, rather by changes in annual storm frequency or intensity. However, okay, so what the paper's saying is it's not the cause is not an increase in annual storm frequency as we've been talking about. It's due to the places where cyclones increase in wealth. So, okay. The analysis does not indicate significant long-period global or individual basin trends in the frequency or intensity of landfalling tropical cyclones of minor or major hurricane strength. The evidence in this study provides strong evidence for the conclusion that increasing damage around the world can be explained by increasing wealth locations due to landfall. So yeah, as Nestle said, and as we already talked about, there's not necessarily an increase in tropical cyclones, but there has been an increase over the last couple of decades in severe storm count. Okay, so that is true. I was curious about this paper, so okay. Yeah, the evidence does not support the presence of significant long-period global or individual basin linear trends for minor, major, or total hurricanes within the period. So, okay, so again, he just keeps referring to hurricanes specifically without referring more broadly to severe storms. Because if you look at the data for severe storms have increased. But he just keeps focusing very specifically on hurricanes, just so he can avoid all the other data around it. And my unfinished sock says, don't shovel coal on the fires of climate change, like and share the stream instead. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we can go a little bit more.
we're told that all things are getting worse. but the facts don't support this. This does not mean global warming is not real or a problem, but the one-sided story of alarmism makes us lose focus.
Well,
if we
pause
want
for a
to help
second.
the world's poor,
Okay, so he only cited one metric, which was the number of cyclones, and said, well, the number of hurricanes or cyclones really hasn't increased. So, climate change is not real. Maybe. Who's to say? Because just because the number of hurricanes hasn't increased. Okay, we can keep going.
I like how he said the facts don't support this, as if that is anything that PragerU is ever worried about, whether or not the facts support something.
Yeah.
Just,
who are the most threatened by natural disasters, it's less about cutting carbon emissions than it is about pulling them out of poverty. The best way to see this is to look at the world's death from natural disasters over time.
Well, hold on.
In the Oxford University...
I mean, it's true. It would... we'd probably have fewer poor people dying like preventable deaths if they weren't all poor. That's probably true. I am curious to know what his solution for that would be, though. Very curious. Maybe he'll give it.
Database for death rates from floods, extreme temperatures, droughts, and storms, the average in the first part of last century was more than 130 dead every year per million people. Since then, the death rates have dropped 97% to a new low in the 2010s of less than 4 per million.
Because we have more.
The dramatic decline is mostly due to economic developments that help
Right. Yeah, so Nestling said we have better monitoring systems for preventing this. And yeah, that's true. So yeah, I mean, like that's great. That's science working.
Or unless Trump reaches for a Sharpie and misleads the entire public of the trajectory of a hurricane. Unless something like that happens.
Right. Smitty says the best way to help the poor is to cut taxes on billionaires and regulations, so and regulations on the economy, so the corporations, and cut regulations on corporations so the economy can flourish. Is that the argument that was it Lomberg here is going to make? Who's to say? Let's find out.
Nations withstand catastrophes. If you're rich like Florida, a major hurricane might cause plenty of damage to expensive buildings, but it kills few people and causes only a temporary dent in economic output. If a similar hurricane hits a poorer country like the Philippines or Guatemala, it kills many more people and can devastate the economy. So let's be clear, climate change is not worse than we thought. That doesn't mean it's not a reality or not a problem. It is.
Okay. So
but
what's
the
your
narrative that the world's climate is changing from bad to worse is unhelpful alarmism that prevent us from focusing on smart solutions.
Like what?
A well-meaning environmentalist might argue that because climate change is a reality, why not ramp up the rhetoric and focus on the bad news to make sure the public understands its importance? But that's exactly what we've done for the past 20 years. Yet despite dramatic headlines, apocalyptic documentaries, and annual climate summits, carbon emissions continue to rise, especially in rapidly developing countries like India, China, and many African nations. Alarmism has encouraged the pursuit of a one-sided climate policy of trying to cut carbon emissions by subsidizing wind farms and solar panels. Yet today, according to the International Energy Agency, only about 0.4% of global energy consumption comes from solar photovoltaics and windmills. And even with exceptionally optimistic assumptions about future deployment of wind and solar, the International Energy Agency expects that these energy forms will provide a minuscule 2.2% of the world's energy by 2040. In other words, for at least the next 2 decades, solar and wind energy are simply expensive, feel-good measures that will have an imperceptible climate impact. Instead, we should focus on investing in research and development of green energy to lower its costs. So everyone will want it, including China and India. We urgently need a more balanced climate conversation if we ought to make sensible choices and pick the right climate policy that can actually help fix climate change. I'm Bjorn Lomborg, president of the Copenhagen Consensus Center.
Okay, so pause. So, so he provided exactly one solution in part, right? It's kind of a solution. Is he said we need to invest more in green energy research and development. Who would argue against? Oh, actually, we do know who would argue against that. Donald Trump would argue against that, as he has this year, as they've cut funding for a variety of green energy projects. But like, I mean, we here would argue like we should go towards nuclear, right? Nuclear should be a temporary solution, right, until we can get more sustainable sources of energy. But like, the fossil fuel industries don't want that because they're making too much money off of not nuclear, off of not these renewable sources of energy. Like, I don't even understand. Plus, like, when is this video from? Well, he kept citing sources from 2014, so I'd be willing to bet somewhere around there. But
Yeah,
like,
it's an old video. Yeah, all of these are old.
yeah, just like that's this video was baffling to me because he only cites hurricane intensity or hurricane number, I guess, and as we pointed out, that didn't really tell us anything. And then he said, okay, well, the climate alarmism is bad, even though he didn't really provide much of a reason for us to think climate alarmism is bad. And then he's proposed a fine solution, which is invest in green energy. Like, okay. No one's arguing against that. What do you mean? So yeah. Ridiculous. Okay. That was ridiculous. Okay, anyway. Oh no, Peter, we can't hear it.
Ah. Okay. Wait a minute. Copy
Then we'll do that
filters.
and then we'll call it.
Paste filters. Now we can. Thank you for watching this video. To keep PragerU debunked, please consider donating through a super chat or a super thanks. Thank you.
All right. Well, that was. Oh, I'm the Infinite Jackson now.
Oh, yeah. We'll have to make that.
So that was a baffling video.
One button.
Well, this was fun. We debunked another PragerU video. We did it, guys, and we'll keep at it again next week. So, thanks everybody for watching, and we will see all of you guys next time. So, bye everybody.
Bye everyone. Go ahead.